The rain hammered the tin roof of the old Victorian house in upstate New York like 1,000 accusations, each drop a reminder of the life Adeline had fled 5 years ago. She burst through the front door, soaked to the bone, clutching a crumpled letter that burned hotter than the fever raging in her chest. Her diagnosis, in black and white, stage 4 ovarian cancer. 6 months if she was lucky. But it wasn't the death sentence that shattered her. It was the single line at the bottom, scrawled in her mother's elegant cursive. "We always knew you'd end up alone. Addie. Come home before it's too late." Adeline's boots squelched on the faded Persian rug as she stormed into the kitchen, where the family dinner tableau froze like a bad oil painting. Her father, Harlan, fork midway to his mouth. Her mother, Evelyn, dabbing at her lips with a napkin. And her sister, Becca, eyes wide over a glass of cheap Merlot. Alone. Adeline hurled the letter onto the oak table, her voice cracking like thunder. "You think this is alone? I've built a life you wouldn't understand. And now you pity me because I'm dying." Harlan's fork clattered against his plate, his broad face flushing red under the harsh fluorescent light. 62. He still carried the weight of his millworker days in his calloused hands and the perpetual scowl that had labeled Adeline a disappointment since she came out at 18. "Addie, sit down. This ain't the time for dramatics. Your family were worried." "Worried?" She laughed. Bitter, hollow sound that echoed off the yellowed wallpaper. "You disowned me for loving a woman. Called me a failure for chasing art instead of a husband and kids. And now? Because I'm sick. You want me back? Like I'm some stray dog limping home." Evelyn rose, her silk blouse whispering against the chair. But her eyes, those sharp blue eyes that had once read bedtime stories, darted away. "We didn't disown you, sweetheart. We prayed you'd find your way back to the church, to normalcy." Adeline's chest tightened, the tumor inside her a dull ache mirroring the one in her heart. Normalcy. That's what they'd always demanded. The white picket fence in their sleepy town of Elmwood. The Sunday potlucks where whispers about that phase followed her like shadows. She'd left for Brooklyn at 23. Trading the scent of her mother's apple pie for the grit of subway fumes and the thrill of gallery openings. There, she'd found Riley fiery. Tattooed Riley with the laugh that could melt steel and eyes like smoked quartz that saw straight through her defenses. But that was before. Before the diagnosis. Before the secret she buried deeper than her family's rejection. Adeline slumped into the wicker chair on the back porch, the autumn chill seeping through her damp jeans as the rain softened to a drizzle. Elmwood hadn't changed. The maple trees shedding crimson leaves like confetti from a funeral. The distant hum of the freight train that used to lull her to sleep as a kid. She pulled out her phone, thumb hovering over Riley's contact. "Hey, babe. Back in hell. Miss you already." But she deleted it. The words too fragile for the storm inside her. The screen door creaked, and Becca stepped out, wrapping a wool blanket around her shoulders like armor. 28. Her sister was the golden child, married to an accountant named Tom, popping out a toddler named Lily who already knew her ABCs. Becca's dark hair was pulled into a neat ponytail, her face a softer echo of their mother's, but her eyes held a flicker of the rebellion they'd shared as teens, sneaking Marlboros behind the garage. "You look like shit, Addie," Becca said, sliding into the chair beside her. No hugs, no tears, just that blunt New York edge they'd both inherited from Dad. "Thanks. You look like you swallowed a thesaurus of passive-aggressive apologies." Adeline lit a cigarette, the flame dancing in the twilight. inhaling the familiar burn that grounded her. Becca snatched the pack, taking one for herself. Mom's baking pies to cope. Dad's pretending to read the paper. Classic avoidance. But seriously, Cancer? Why didn't you call? Adeline exhaled a plume of smoke toward the darkening sky. Because this isn't my home anymore. You made that clear at Thanksgiving 3 years ago, when Aunt Clara asked about my roommate, and Dad changed the subject like I'd brought up the plague. Becca winced, flicking ash over the railing. We were idiots. Scared. Mostly. You were so unapologetic. Marching in pride parades, posting those paintings online. It felt like you were throwing our world away. Unapologetic. Adeline's voice rose, edged with the rawness of old wounds. I was fighting to breathe. Bex. Loving Riley wasn't a choice, it was survival. And those paintings? They paid my rent when waitressing didn't cut it. Riley. Got. Just saying the name in her head conjured her. 35. With cropped black hair streaked electric blue. A sleeve of ink depicting fierce women warriors snaking up her arm. And a dimple that appeared only when she smirked after winning an argument. They'd met at a queer open mic in Bushwick. Adeline reciting poetry about fractured families. Riley on stage with her guitar, belting out folk-punk anthems about lost loves. One shared whiskey sour later, and Adeline was hooked, tumbling into a romance that felt like coming home after a lifetime of exile. But Riley didn't know about the cancer yet. Adeline had hidden it, telling herself it was to spare her the panic. But really, it was fear of losing the one pure thing in her life. Becca stubbed out her cigarette. Tell me about her. Riley. Is she the one? Adeline's throat closed. She was. Until I pushed her away last month. Said I needed space to figure shit out. Truth is, I didn't want her watching me waste away. The porch light buzzed on, casting long shadows. Inside, Harlan's voice rumbled through the screen door, arguing with Evelyn about giving Addie tough love. Tough love. That's what they'd called it when they stopped paying her tuition after she came out, forcing her to drop out of community college. Tough love when they skipped her first gallery show, sending a card that read, "Proud of your talent, but pray for guidance." I can't stay here, Adeline whispered, more to herself than Becca. Not with them looking at me like I'm broken. Becca reached over, squeezing her hand, the first touch in years that didn't feel like pity. Then don't. But let us try. Addie. For Lily's sake. She asks about Aunt Addie all the time. The one who draws the pretty ladies. Adeline's eyes stung. Lily, with her chubby fists clutching crayons, had been the one bright spot in those strained visits. Maybe that's why she'd come back now, not for them, but for the niece who saw her as a hero, not a failure. That night, Adeline lay in her childhood bed, the quilt smelling of mothballs and memories. Sleep evaded her, chased by flashes of Riley's apartment, the sun streaming through loft windows onto canvases propped against brick walls. Riley's bare feet padding across the hardwood as she brewed coffee strong enough to wake the dead. You're my muse, Addie, she'd murmur, tracing the curve of Adeline's hip with paint-stained fingers. All fire and storm. Fire and storm. That's what Adeline needed now. Not this suffocating normalcy. But as dawn crept in, painting the room gold, a resolve hardened in her gut. She'd face them one last time. Tell her secret. The one that could shatter their judgments or bind them in forgiveness. The secret of the life she'd built. The child she'd saved without them knowing. The next morning brought a fragile truce. Pancakes stacked high with Evelyn's famous blueberry compote. Harlan grumbling about the weather as he poured coffee black as his mood. Adeline picked at her food, the sweetness cloying against the metallic tang of chemo pills she'd swallowed in secret. Becca chased Lily around the table. The toddler's giggles a brief reprieve from the undercurrent of unspoken grief. "We should talk," Evelyn said finally, her voice tentative as she set down her mug. 58. Time had etched fine lines around her eyes, but her posture remained ramrod straight. The pastor's wife who traded dreams of traveling Europe for PTA meetings and Bible study. Adeline met her gaze, steeling herself. "Yeah. We should. About why you wrote that in the letter. End up alone. Like my life's some tragedy because I didn't check your boxes." Harlan cleared his throat, his milk calluses scraping the table. "We raised you better, Addie. With values. A family. Not whatever this wandering is." "Wandering." Adeline's fork clattered. "I have a career, Dad. My portraits hang in galleries from Soho to Seattle. Women like me, queer, broken, beautiful, staring back at themselves for the first time. That's not failure, that's fucking triumph." "Language," Evelyn hissed, glancing at Lily, who was now smearing syrup on her highchair tray. Becca shot Adeline an apologetic look. "She's right, though. Addie's work is amazing. I saw it online, the one of the woman in the rain. Eyes like she's daring the world. Isn't it?" Adeline nodded, a ghost of a smile tugging her lips. "That piece, Defiant Downpour, had sold for $5,000 last spring. Enough to cover Riley's vet bills after their rescue mutt, Jasper, ate a sock. Riley had framed the check on the fridge. Proof we're not starving artists anymore. But triumph felt hollow now, with the cancer gnawing at her edges. She pushed her plate away. "There's something I need to tell you. About why I came back." The room stilled, even Lily sensing the shift, her babbling fading to wide-eyed silence. Harlan leaned forward, his scowl deepening. "Out with it." Then, Adeline drew a breath, the words she'd rehearsed in the mirror 100 times tumbling out. "5 years ago, after you cut me off, I hit bottom. Lost my apartment. Couchsurfed through the queer scene in Brooklyn. That's when I met Sarah, not Riley, but Sarah. She was 17. Kicked out by her folks for being gay. Found her shivering in a shelter. Bruises from her dad's belt still fresh." Evelyn gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Becca's eyes welled. "I took her in," Adeline continued, voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "Taught her to paint. Got her into community college on my dime. She was family, the sister I wished I'd had here. Last year, she graduated top of her class at Pratt. Now she's interning at MoMA, curating exhibits on queer history. And she's pregnant. Bex, adopted a kid with her wife. Due any day." Harlan's face paled. You raised a child? Without us. Not raised. Mentored. Saved. Adeline's eyes blazed. Because that's what family does. Not labels you a failure for loving who you love. The weight of it hung there, a revelation cracking the facade of their perfect life. Evelyn's tears spilled over. "Why didn't you tell us? We could've helped." Adeline snorted. "You barely acknowledged my birthday cards." Becca stood, pulling Adeline into a fierce hug. I'm sorry. God. I'm so sorry. You're the strongest of us all. But Harlan remained silent, his jaw clenched, the old walls unyielding. As the day wore on, tension simmered, Evelyn hovering with tea and apologies, Becca sharing photos of Lily's latest artwork, a crayon scribble Adeline recognized as her own style. Adeline escaped to the attic, unearthing her old sketchbooks, pages filled with drawings of Riley, her profile against city lights, hands tangled in Adeline's hair. She texted Riley then, the truth spilling out in pixels. I'm sick. Back home with the wolves. Need you. The reply came swift. On my way. Pack your fire. Storm girl. We're burning this bridge together. Riley arrived like a nor'easter, tires crunching gravel at dusk. Her beat-up Subaru loaded with Jasper's bed and a duffel of paint supplies. Adeline met her on the porch, the air thick with the scent of wet earth and impending confrontation. Riley stepped out, all 6 feet of her unfolding like a promise, cropped hair windswept, leather jacket zipped against the chill, that dimple flashing as she pulled Adeline into a kiss that tasted of diner coffee and unwavering love. You look like you could use a revolution, Riley murmured against her lips, voice low and gravelly from years of shouting lyrics into dive bar mics. Adeline clung to her, the solid warmth chasing away the porch's ghosts. Or a getaway car. Families inside, plotting their redemption arc. Riley's eyes, those smoky quartz depths, scanned the house with the wariness of someone who'd grown up dodging her own evangelical parents' sermons. Lead the way, babe. I've got your back, and a mean glare for bigots. Dinner that night was a battlefield disguised as pot roast. Harlan eyed Riley like she'd sprouted horns. Evelyn fluttered with forced hospitality, offering seconds no one wanted. Becca, ever the bridge, steered conversation to neutral ground. Lily's daycare drama, the neighbor's runaway cat. But undercurrents pulled strong, Adeline's hand finding Riley's under the table. A silent anchor, Jasper whining from the porch, tied to the railing like a furry sentinel. So, Riley, Harlan ventured finally, wiping gravy from his chin with a napkin that had seen better days. What line of work you in? Adeline says you're musical. Riley's laugh was a bark, unapologetic. Bartender by trade, songwriter by soul. Play gigs at the Stonewall in most weekends, keeps the lights on and the stories flowing. The Stonewall. Evelyn's fork paused, her face a mask of polite confusion laced with the church lady judgment Adeline knew too well. Yeah, Riley said, leaning back, her tattooed arm flexing casually. Where it all started for folks like us. Riots in 69, queer kids fighting back against raids. History's got teeth. Mrs. Hargrove. Sharp ones. Harlan shifted, his chair creaking under his bulk. We don't hold with that lifestyle. It's a choice. See. One that leads folks astray. Adeline's grip tightened on Riley's hand, nails digging crescents. It's not a choice, Dad. It's me. And it's not leading astray, it's leading home. The table fell silent, save for Lily's spoon clanging against her bowl. Becca broke it, voice soft. Tom and I, we're trying for another. But Addie, your stories about Sarah, they make me think. What if Lily turns out like you? Proud. Fierce. Riley squeezed back, her thumb tracing circles on Adeline's knuckles. Then you'd be lucky. Kids like that change the world. Evelyn's eyes darted between them. A war raging behind her facade. Faith versus flesh. The daughter she'd lost versus the woman before her. I prayed for you every night, Addie. For healing. For a man to set you straight. Riley snorted. But Adeline felt the stab. Old and deep. Prayers didn't stop the cancer, Mom. Or the years you ghosted me. Harlan slammed his palm down. The dishes rattling. Enough. This ain't a debate club. You're sick. Addie dying. For Christ's sake. And you drag this. This woman here to rub it in. Riley rose. Slow and deliberate. Her height towering. Call her sick again. Harlan. And you'll see how quick a woman like me can throw a punch. She's not dying on your terms. She's living on hers. The room erupted. Evelyn's sobs. Becca's pleas. Lily's wail piercing the chaos. Adeline pulled Riley outside. The cool night air a balm on her flushed skin. They collapsed onto the porch swing. Jasper nosing at their feet. Tail thumping like a metronome. You didn't have to come, Adeline whispered. Head on Riley's shoulder. This is my mess. Riley tilted her chin up. Ice fierce. Your mess is ours. Remember that night in the ER? After the car wreck? You held me together when the doc said I'd never play guitar again. This is payback. Storm girl. The wreck 2 years back. A drunk driver on the BQE. Riley's left hand mangled. Dreams of a record deal shattered. Adeline had sat vigil, coaxing her through PT with sketches of callous fingers strumming again. It was then, in the sterile hospital glow, that their love deepened from passion to pact. Vows whispered over vending machine coffee. In sickness. In fire. Till the stars burn out. But now, sickness was real. A thief stealing breaths Adeline didn't want to spare. What if I don't beat it? She confessed. Voice breaking. What if this is it, begging forgiveness from ghosts? Riley's arm tightened around her. Then we make him haunt us with regret. You've got a secret weapon. Addie. That kid Sarah? She's not just your success story. She's proof you're the heart we all need. Adeline nodded. But doubt not. The secret had layers. Sarah's baby wasn't just any child. It was the product of a surrogacy fund Adeline had anonymously seeded. Her gallery earnings funneled through a queer nonprofit. Her family, with their tidy lives, would never understand the quiet heroism of giving without glory. Inside, voices rose and fell, Harlan's gruff apologies muffled by Evelyn's weeping. Becca emerged eventually, Lily asleep on her hip. They're breaking. Addie. Mom found your old letters in the attic, the ones you wrote from Brooklyn, begging them to visit your shows. She's gutted. Let her be, Adeline said. Exhaustion settling like fog. Tomorrow. We drive to the city. Sarah's due soon. I want to be there. Riley stood, offering her hand. Road trip it is. With detours for bad diners and better music. As they loaded the car at dawn, Harlan appeared in the doorway, hands shoved in his pockets, face etched with the lines of a man who'd carried regrets like sandbags. Addie. Wait. She paused. Riley idling the engine. What? He swallowed hard. I was wrong. About a lot. Seeing you with her. Riley, it's like watching you breathe free. Don't go yet. Please. Adeline's heart twisted. The boy she'd once idolized peeking through the patriarch. I have to. Dad. But I'll call. And maybe bring Riley back sometime. For pie. He nodded, a ghost of a smile cracking his facade. As they pulled away, Elmwood shrinking in the rear view, Adeline felt the first real spark of hope, not for healing, but for mending. In Brooklyn, the city embraced them like an old lover. Honking cabs, steam rising from manhole covers, the pulse of life that drowned out Adeline's quieter fears. Sarah's apartment in Bed-Stuy buzzed with anticipation, mismatched furniture piled with baby onesies, the air scented with jasmine incense and fresh basil from the windowsill herb garden. Sarah, now 22, glowed at 28 weeks, her once frail frame rounded with promise, curly red hair tied back as she unpacked a bassinet. Aunt Addie, she enveloped Adeline in a hug that smelled of lavender lotion and victory. You made it. And Riley, hey, rockstar. Heard your new single on Spotify. Fractured hymns? It's killing me. Riley grinned, setting down takeout from the corner deli. Wrote it for this one. About mending what's bent. Sarah's wife, Lena, a quiet graphic designer with warm brown skin and locks cascading like waterfalls, winked. She's got a knack for turning pain into poetry. Over falafel wraps and ginger tea, stories flowed. Sarah's exhibit at Pratt, where Adeline's mentorship had been credited in the program, Lena's freelance gigs designing Pride merch, the nursery mural Riley had sketched last visit. Fierce women cradling stars. Adeline soaked it in. The tumor's ache dulled by laughter. But reality intruded, a voicemail from Evelyn. We're coming to see you. All of us. Saturday. Please. Adeline's stomach nodded. They want to meet you, she told Riley later. Tangled in sheets that smelled of them, paint and patchouli. Riley traced the scar on Adeline's abdomen, a souvenir from exploratory surgery. Think they're ready for the full Addie experience? Or think I'm their redemption project? Adeline sighed, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin. The secret's only half out. They don't know about the fund, the money I scraped for Sarah's tuition, the anonymous donation for the surrogacy. Riley propped on an elbow, dimple deepening. Tell him. Let it be the thunder. Saturday dawned gray. The Hargrove clan arriving in Harlan's rattling Ford. Becca wrangling Lily while Evelyn clutched a Tupperware of cookies like a peace offering. The apartment felt too small for the collision, Harlan's bulk dwarfing the thrift store couch, Evelyn's eyes widening at the rainbow flag draped over the bookshelf, Lily toddling straight to Jasper for sloppy kisses. Riley played host with her effortless cool, pouring iced tea and cueing a playlist of soft indie folk. Welcome to our chaos, she said, clinking glasses. No sermons required. Evelyn managed a smile, perching on the edge of a chair. It's colorful. Like your paintings. Addie. Sarah and Lena arrived fashionably late, arms laden with ultrasound prints and sonograms. Introductions crackled, Becca cooing over the bump, Harlan mumbling congratulations, Evelyn's gaze lingering on Sarah's hand intertwined with Lena's. This is the family I chose, Adeline said, gesturing around the room. Sarah, who I pulled from the brink. Lena, who built her up. Riley, who keeps me standing. Harlan cleared his throat, voice rough. We owe you an apology, son Riley. For judging before knowing. Riley arched a brow. Daughter works fine. But apology accepted if it's real. Becca nudged him. Tell her. Dad. About the letters. Harlan pulled a faded envelope from his jacket. hands trembling. Found these in the attic. Your sketches. Addie, ones you sent us. The Woman in the Storm? I hung it in the garage. Kept me company on bad shifts. Adeline's breath hitched. The sketch, early work. Raw lines capturing a figure lashed by rain. Face upturned in defiance. She'd drawn it after their fallout. A talisman of survival. Evelyn wiped her eyes. We were scared, sweetheart, of losing you to a world that chews up dreamers. But seeing this, she nodded at Sarah, rubbing her belly. You didn't just survive. You created life. The dam broke then, tears, embraces. Harlan's gruff admission. I labeled you failure 'cause I was the coward. Afraid my girl's path wasn't mine. Adeline pulled him into a hug, the scent of Old Spice and sawdust flooding her with childhood. You're not a failure either, Dad. Just late to the party. As laughter mingled with sobs, Lily tugged Adeline's sleeve, holding up a crayon. Draw, baby. Aunt Addie. Riley handed her a sketch pad, and Adeline knelt. Lines flowing. A child cradled by two mothers. Surrounded by a circle of fierce women, Sarah, Lena, Riley. Even echoes of Evelyn and Becca. The room watched. Silent witnesses to creation. But later, alone with Riley on the fire escape, Adeline confessed the full secret. The surrogacy fund? I started it after Sarah's story went viral in Queer Max. Donated my first big commission, 10 grand. Anonymous. For families like hers. Riley's eyes shone. My hero. Now tell them. She did. Over coffee the next morning, the family gathered around the kitchen table. Words spilled. The nonprofit. The quiet gifts to shelters. The legacy she built in shadows. Harlan's jaw dropped. Evelyn gasped. Becca beamed through tears. You gave us a granddaughter's aunt without us knowing. Harlan choked. We don't deserve you. Addie. No, she said softly. But you get to try. Starting now. Weeks blurred into a fragile rhythm. Chemo sessions in Manhattan. Riley's hand in hers through the nausea. Family visits laced with tentative questions about art, love, faith redefined. Sarah delivered a healthy boy, Elias. On a crisp October morning, Adeline the first to hold him. His tiny fist curling around her finger like forgiveness incarnate. Harlan drove up for the baptism, not church, but a backyard affair with rainbow streamers and Lena's aunt as officiant. He stood awkward in khakis, holding Elias while Evelyn snapped photos, her smile genuine for the first time in years. You're a natural, Grandpa, Adeline teased. Riley's arm around her waist. He grunted, eyes misty. Takes one to know one. Sorry it took so long. As leaves turned to frost, Adeline's strength waned. The cancer a relentless tide. But in stolen moments, Riley's songs at bedside, Becca's care packages of Elmwood apples, Evelyn's letters quoting not scripture, but Adeline's poetry, she found grace. The end came gently. In their loft with the city humming below. Riley sang fractured hymns one last time. Voice cracking, the family gathered. Hands linked in a circle unbroken. Adeline slipped away at dawn. A sketch half finished on her lap. All of them. Woven in light. In the aftermath, they scattered her ashes in Central Park. Under the oak where she proposed to Riley with a ring forged from mill scrap Harlan sent. She forgave us, Evelyn whispered, clutching the urn. And in the gallery that spring, Sarah's exhibit debuted. Echoes of Storm, Adeline's portraits restored. A plaque reading, "For the failure who taught us triumph." Riley hung back, dimple flashing at Becca. She'd hate the tears. Prefer we dance. They did. Later. In a dive bar pulsing with queer joy, steps heavy with loss, light with love. Adeline's secret, once buried, bloomed eternal, not in begging forgiveness, but granting it. A legacy etched in hearts, unyielding as New York stone.